Welcome everybody at the webinar about our latest 6.3 release with the theme Corporate Performance Analytics. My name is Wouter Born. I'm CTO of CXO-Cockpit and I'm responsible for USA business unit. I'm based out of Atlanta, where I'm presenting to you right now. Like with every release, very excited about a lot of new functionality, and today that's true as well. I think we have a great new release packed with a lot of functionality that have been requested by our end users, and yeah, we try to listen as good as possible to your requests and try to improve the product accordingly. The theme of today is corporate performance analytics, and what that really means is that we try to bring in functionality that allow you to do real analysis, that allow you to move from reporting into the direction of gathering intelligence and doing analytics. And there are a series of features in this release that will really help you to do so. Before I really start, just some announcements, household things. You can ask questions. You can do that in your software by just typing the question. I will handle them at the end of the webinar. The webinar setup that I will first walk through some features using some slides, and then I will show a demo of all these features and show you how to build certain things. So yeah, questions can be asked during the webinar, but I will handle them at the end of the webinar. And it might be that we don't get to all questions, but we'll keep all the questions registered, and we'll get back to you after the webinar if we're not able to answer them. So probably the first feature that we would like to talk about when we talk about analytics is predictive analytics. I think this is something that is pretty much hyped at the moment. There is a lot of software and a lot of projects, initiatives around analytics and predictive analytics. I think we were looking in how can we build something that is actually usable without having a bunch of data scientists over the floor that would really work on very advanced algorithms. So we came down with an algorithm that is used a lot in the market. It's used by Excel, for example, as well. And that algorithm predicts future based on historical data. So it's taking your, in this case, total revenues. It looks at a couple of years in history, and then it predicts the current year or current year and next year. Later on in the demo, I will show you how you can create something like this, how it works, etc. I think it's very valuable if you just want to start with doing some basic predictions, and that's probably already a lot more than what most of our customers are doing today. So yeah, we're excited to release this first version of predictive analytics, and we're really open to hear your feedback and to see what other kind of predictions you would like to do. Like I said, later in the demo, I will get into more details on this. Another thing that we introduced, and I've built quite a few of them already, are tiles. I think they're great. They're representing one single number typically. We have options of just presenting the number, or a number with a variance, or a number with a variance, and a trend line, a historical trend line. I think they're very valuable if you just want to communicate a key KPI, or just one of your numbers that should be that are more important than others. They're very user friendly, and they look really good on dashboards. Also here, I will show you them in a demo and show you how easy it is to build them. They're very design friendly as well. Another thing, this was #1 in our AHA ID portal. We're having this portal where our customers can enter their wishes for new features. and can also vote on the feature. So you probably all voted on this topic, and it's part of it. So it has become part of 6.3, and that's really an example of where we, this wasn't maybe initially on the scope of 6.3, but this thing was this specific feature was voted probably more than 30 times, and so we really listened to that, and we made it part of 6.3. I will show that a little later in the demo, how it works and how to set this up. Another thing, what allows you to build more extended analytics or make CXO-Cockpit part of a wider ecosystem is that we allow now hyperlinks outside CXO-Cockpit. Before you could define hyperlinks between CXO-Cockpit reports. So you could drill from your account line to, for example, you can drill from your account line to a report that has all the details on that specific account, for example. But now what you can actually do, and I have a nice example in our demo, is drill to an external system. And I know some of our customers have done already some advanced things with view controls where they already were drilling into external systems. But what this really brings is the option to build up a hyperlink, use your point of view elements, or for example, if you drill from an account, use that account and build up a URL to an external system. Of course, this external system needs to be able to handle a URL-based access. So in certain cases, you would have to build a wrapper between, which could be one HTML page that bridges our URL to that external application. But with quite some applications, this would just work out of the box for as long as they are able to handle parameters like entity, account, or other parameters. So for today's demo, I will show you how we implemented this to link from one of our reports directly into our CRM system. Another thing what we've done is we've enhanced our multi-source support. And what that really means is that multi-source was very well supported, but on a limited amount of controls. And that's something what we consider as one of the true powers of CXO-Cockpit, is that we were able to put one report on multiple sources. And that's used quite broadly among our customers. We've seen several use cases, but we did get a lot of requests whether this would be, for example, supported in bridge charts or other charts. And with 6.3, we support, for example, the bridge and the waterfall as multi-source, multi-source reports. Another exciting new thing, and this will be part of my demo as well, is the ability to set up dynamic report titles. Sometimes you would really like to make, for example, the entity part of your report title, P&L for Asia. So now that's possible. We've distinguished the report name and the report title. So there are two fields now. By default, it's the same. But if you select to use a different report title, you can actually just define a different title showing parts of your point of view as variables. I will show that in the demo a little later. Another thing that we've included are column selectors in tables, and the line that we're in which direction we're developing our solution is that we want to make our free format objects to be as powerful as what we have in our standard templates. And that would allow us and you to build an unlimited number of templates that are as powerful as our free format templates. And that could also allow us to start delivering to you a lot of new templates not by upgrading your solution, but for example, by allowing you to download those from a website. Well, these developments are not there yet, but the prerequisites to get there are really covered in this 6.3 release, and with our next releases, we will, take some more additional steps, and from there we can really set up a catalog of new templates that you can then use to download new visualizations, and maybe eventually share them among each other as well. The column selector is something that you were used to see that, for example, in a financial statement template. Well, we've really mimicked that functionality. So you can build both column selectors, variant selectors, and that makes your table controls a lot more dynamic, a lot more powerful. And of course, this is part of my demo today. Another thing that we've improved is the way how free format templates work. Before, you would always have to adjust the size of your table to be exactly the number of rows that you had in your report, and that made the free format templates not really templates, but they became more free format reports, because you would never have the exact same number of rows on every version of that report. So you had to create a lot of different versions of the same free format template, with every time the table a little bigger, a little smaller. What we've implemented in 6.3 is the ability for a table to grow and to push the objects, like the commentary box, or like another table, or maybe some charts, to push these objects down. And this is the start of a bigger project where what we will continue to work on in 6.4 is that our free format templates will become completely responsive and dynamically sizing according to your screen size. So this is the first step towards that. I think we've talked to many of you as customers, and we feel that the biggest frustration at this moment with the free format template is the fact that these tables don't grow. So this is the first thing that we covered in 6.3. And again, this is part of my demo, one of the first demo steps. Well, a last thing I would like to discuss using my slides, and then I will move over to the demo, are system announcements. With version 6.2, we've introduced a new feature which we call conversations. It's something that supports collaboration between users. People can ask each other questions, and that is a very powerful feature. I'm not sure if many of you use it today. So today in the demo, I will just show this one more time how it works. But the system announcements is a kind of a follow-up feature on this, and what it allows is for an administrator to send a notification to all its users, and for example, announcing that data is ready, or that new reports have been added, or any kind of thing that you would like to communicate with all your users at once can be done in system announcements. And system announcements have been merged with our news items. So the news items have become system announcements, and system announcements become news items. You can choose from every announcement that you make whether you want to show it as a news item, whether you want to push it to everyone's notifications center as an announcement. And if you have configured the email functionality, then everyone would get an email from the system if they have not seen the announcements within 5 minutes by themselves. So it's something to make all our collaboration features work smoothly. You would probably have to configure a mail and email configuration so that the system is allowed to email your end users if they missed an announcement or a conversation or something like that. I will show this in a little bit how this would work, but I think it's a very powerful feature to interact more with your end user. Okay, so I will go into the demo, and let me first of all just log out before I go into a lot more detail. What I'm going to show today is a demo based on our own CXO-Cockpit application that we use internally. We use CXO-Cockpit to manage our financials, to report on our financials, but also to manage and report and analyze all our CRM data. So we use as a CRM system Microsoft Dynamics, and CXO-Cockpit has been used widely to understand how we are doing on sales and how we're doing with our customers and all these things. So we're looking at demo data today. Everything what you see is just random demo data, but the kind of dashboards are the ones that we use internally. And since we were one of the first beta customers for 6.3, I've built a lot of these new 6.3 features in our own application, and that allows me to show that to you in the best way. First thing, and it was not on the slides, but the first thing that we're actually doing with our own internal application is running it as a cloud platform. You know, we are launching a cloud and Azure cloud system mainly for the cloud EPM systems that are on the market, but while we continue, it might become available for EPM on-premise installations as well. But we really run this as a full cloud, as an Azure cloud, and we use single sign-on. So I'm going to use my single sign-on to my Microsoft Active Directory. And now, if I keep logged on my Microsoft Active Directory, I do not have to log in again. What you see is that it's a secure cloud. It runs under cxosolutions.cxocloud.com. So this is 100% cloud architecture and infrastructure. So when I log into this dashboard, the very first thing that you will see is that this uses new formatting options that were previously not available. For example, as you see, there are a lot of tables on this report, and there are arrows, for example, behind. Well, what we've released with 6.3 is what we call an image control, and an image control is like what we, like what you can do with a web browser control, but it actually really stores an image. So you don't have to upload an image anymore to a web address and then put it in a web browser control. No, you can just use the image control, in this case, as a background. So I designed all the arrows as a background image. Another thing what you will see is that the tables have additional formatting. So these tables, for example, don't have an indent anymore. Initially, our tables had an indent to reserve space for a drill button. But if there are no drill buttons, you don't need that indent of maybe 3-4 characters. This gives you more space to design them more specifically. Another option that we've included is the ability to exclude headers. In this case, I just want to show my row headers, but not my column headers, because I only have one number. So there is no need to tell the end user of this product that this is actual, for example. Everyone knows that this is actual. So I eliminated my my column headers to just show data in a better way. Well, this is what we use as a homepage. And I won't go too detailed into the specifics, more into the features that are linked to it. But on a very high level, what this actually does is it takes our two most important KPIs, monthly recurring revenue and net income, and brings that together and shows how we, what relation that has to more operational KPIs. In order to have a solid growth, we would need to have a solid pipeline and a good sales execution. In order to have a good sales execution, we need a certain value in our pipeline, but we also need a certain accuracy in our pipeline. So we need to know whether it's reliable or not. In order to get a good pipeline, we need a certain stream of leads. On the other side, to keep our customers happy and grow from that perspective, we need to make sure that we have a good retention and that we optimize our customers in the best possible way. And everything is influenced by good operational execution, like development and all these kind of things. So this is our main dashboard, what we use to navigate to other reports. Well, first of all, I'd like to jump into finance. So let me go into net income and just take you to this first report where that already bundles quite a couple of things together. The first thing that you probably see is that it shows a prediction. I will get into that a little later. Let me first go into some specifics of this dashboard. This looks, at this moment, it looks like a financial statement. It has drill down, I can drill on my rows. I can select to compare this to previous year instead of budget. I can select whether it's variance or as an absolute or a percentage. So let me go back to an absolute variance, and I can select different rows, and my charts on the right side will react on this. Well, this is not a real template. Well, this is not an out-of-the-box template. What we're looking at is just a free format template, but with a lot of enhanced functionality of things that I just mentioned. Let's start, for example, with the drilling. What we have here is that the table is actually growing based on my drill, and it would shrink again if it doesn't need that space. And it pushes the commentary box down. So I could reuse this template also for a balance sheet, for example. And I would not have to build another template because I need a different set of rows, for example. Another thing, what we've built and what we've included are column selectors. As you can see here, it shows, column selectors like like what we offer in our financial statement template. You can just have different comparisons, and you see that you can then show variance as an absolute or a percentage. It's another column selector, and the actual variance chart reacts on all the selections that you make. So it really shows something completely similar to what we have in a financial statement. On the right side, I used completely different controls than our financial statement. So let me, for example, go into this P&L, and like I said, this is a complete random numbers from a software company. So what you see is that the two key revenue lines are total cloud and on-prem revenues. And like every company that starts working with cloud software, what you see is that the biggest part of the revenue comes from on-premise revenues. If I look at the typical on-premise, the main thing that influences the bottom line is the net software licenses. And what's kind of funny is that you would see in the prediction, you see that there is a very big increase in the third quarter. You see 2017 as a whole year, and you see a pretty significant increase here on the third quarter as a total. And I think this is, like I said, it's random data, but I took something from the internet from some existing SaaS companies. So this is a very common thing. What you see in software sales is that the last quarter is always the quarter where most new licenses are sold. However, if I look at my historical chart, I don't see that trend happening. And the reason for it is because there is no 2016 and 2015 in this chart. So we offer a drill down into a more detailed chart that actually shows the history, where you do see in 2016, you see this quarterly increase, and you see it in 2015, quarterly increase. The way how this algorithm works, it's similar to the Excel forecasting algorithm, which is an exponential smoothing algorithm. That's just the technical name for it. But what it does, it tries to apply a regression. So you see that over the years, it goes slightly down as an average. So that is reflected in that this black line, which is the real prediction. The gray area around it is what we call a confidence interval. So that is just room for, there's also always uncertainty. So it gives a bandwidth of how high that uncertainty is. But the real prediction, you see it going down a little compared to the previous years. But on top of a regression, it also takes the historical trend. And that's what you really see. It reflects how the previous years have performed. And you see every time, third quarter, there is a very significant increase. So the algorithm, I will show you in a second how you can build a dashboard like this, but it works relatively intuitive. You don't need a lot of, like I said, you don't need data scientists to apply this. You need a certain amount of history to build a dashboard like this, to come to some meaningful numbers. But it can be built relatively simple. I think there are two other interesting things to this chart, and that's this is something that was already possible in 6.2 and 6.1, and I don't know until how much back, but this is possible for a long time. But I used a new kind of visualization. You see some red areas and some green areas in the chart. And the gray area is actually what you see as gray is your budget. So this shows a new way of showing a variance. The budget is also shown as a gray area, but also the red peaks are your part of your budget that you did not make, while the green areas are the part of your actual that was over your budget. So this chart only shows the differences between actual and budget, and it's probably more meaningful to do it this way than just putting two bars to each other. Like for example, our financial statement template has just two bars with actual and budget, and it's hard to see really where you outperform your budget in which months. So this just gives one view with gray, red, and green. And gray is actually the part you're not interested in. You want to focus on the red and green areas to see if you perform better or worse than your budget. Another thing, what's interesting in this report is that you will see that the title of this report is USA New Software License Prediction. And what you'll recognize is that it's USA that comes from the point of view. If I switch this into Europe, you will see now the title of the report is Europe New Software License Prediction. If I'm going to go one step higher in my P&L and I just say total on-premise software revenues, you see that now the title changed to Europe total on-premise software revenues prediction. So this is completely dynamic based on the point of view. And you see obviously changing, the data is changing. I use this as a drill down report from the previous report, and when you drill down, it automatically sets these values to the place from where you drill down. So if I would have drilled into USA, I would have automatically gotten into USA. If I would have had another account highlighted in my P&L, it would automatically take that over here. So this is a very meaningful drill down report with a lot of additional detail for those that would like to know how the prediction actually worked. Okay, so let's have a quick look at how you build something like this. I go into the designer and I go into the prediction chart. Let me make a little bit more space and close down some things. So the first thing to show you how this dynamic title works, you see that next to the report name, you also have a new checkbox saying show a different title within the report. And then you can specify a title where you can just use point of view elements or not point of view elements. Any dimension can be applied here, but it makes most sense to use point of view elements. And just by using the dimension code, like ENT for entity and account for account. So to go to the predictions, what you'll see is that this is a regular bars and lines chart. And this, I use the bars and lines, the multiple bar and line template, but you could also use this on any free format template if you just put a bars and lines control on it. Well, the prediction in this case has been applied to the lines. So I used the bars for the area chart for the red and the green parts, but for my lines, I actually have displayed a couple of things here. I have my historical actual, which is this one. It just shows as a regular data line. I have my historical budget, which is a thin gray line, which you kind of see here. And I have included a prediction. Well, that's a new item. Before we had like data and some other options, but on the row list, it's just a new item. You just select prediction. And if you select prediction, it asks you two things. Well, the first requirement for prediction is that you need a category, or the thing on the bottom of your chart that has to be a combination of year and periods. That's just what this algorithm understands. And it will ask you two things: is okay, from how far would you like to go back? And in this case, I've selected 2015 because I have data from 2015. And the second thing it asks you is, what is your confidence interval? So if I change my confidence interval, for example, to 50, you actually see that the bandwidth around the line becomes smaller, more narrow. And I would recommend to use as a good default 95 as a proper confidence interval. But it could be that the data is very, you know, there is not a clear historical trend, and it just doesn't look well because the bandwidth is really, really wide. So you can play with that number. The report or this chart works in such a way that it starts automatically predicting from those periods where it does not find data anymore. So if in this case there is data till I think it's still September, so it predicts the last 3 months of 2017, and then it continues the prediction for whole 2018. So just whatever is on your category axis in terms of years and periods, that's what it will predict. So if I would add another 2019, it will also predict 2019. Well, I don't want to do that because that wouldn't come, you know, that wouldn't bring any reliable analysis. Okay, so let me move back to my demo and move on to the tiles. The tiles, like I said, are can be used to build you know, very graphical reports that just show, for example, some core KPIs. And I've built in an example here. It's similar to the previous report, but instead of the predictive charts, it shows a number of tiles on the right side. Tiles can be built to listen to, for example, to a table. But for example, what you also see a lot, and let me just go to another demo that we recently built. And it's the wrong one. It's our OneStream demo. It's a new adapter that we've recently released to the EPM platform OneStream. And what you see here in this OneStream demo is another good example of how to build tiles. For example, to put them on a homepage. And what we've explicitly done in this demo is we make the tiles drillable. So by clicking on gross margin, you would go into a more detailed gross margin analysis. So these tiles in this case are listening to the point of view, but not to any table. They're really meant as more informative blocks on your homepage, so you can inform your users with their most important KPIs. Well, in this example, I've made them listening to the main table. So any line I would select, and it shows the 3 main regions. Well, let me show you from the design mode how the tiles would work. Tiles are not part of any out-of-the-box template. They're part of free format templates. And let's say that we would like to edit the layout of this specific report, and that we would like to add a new tile to this report. So it showed the 3 main regions here, and let's say we want to add a 4th region. So I will just add a tile to this report, and what you'll see, it gets a new number, tile 3. Tiles are by default, as you know, you can't make them other than square. So they're always an exact square, and just as big. And by default, they're 200 by 200 pixels. I made them a little smaller so they would fit a little better. So when I add a new tile, the report would tell me that it misses some values. Well, the nice thing about tiles is that you don't configure them with any lists. You don't have to configure rows, columns, because in the end, it's just a simple number. And everything you need to do to make a tile work is just set what dimension it should use. And in this case, we're running this on our exact accounting system. So I will just say, because I want to include, for example, my headquarter. It showed my 3 main regions, but not my consolidated headquarter entity. So I'll make it entity. And what you see now, it initially doesn't have any data. It already shows headquarter, but it doesn't, for example, know what entity to or what accounts to listen to. And the reason for that is that I forgot actually to link this style to my main table. Well, another thing what I could do to solve that is to actually add a second dimension to this, and I make it listen to both my account and my entity. So what I can now do is, for example, I want this style to look like, you know, it should show my net. I want my net income. So the tile automatically shows both of my dimensions that I've included here. So it takes headquarter and net income, and it shows a number. So only by setting a dimension, and let me just to keep this example clean, let me take out entity. It's just going to be a net income tile. So basically, if you set up this tile, the only thing that you really would have done is to select account and select net income. As you see that we support a couple of different tile styles, and we support just a number with a variance, a number with a variance, and a trend chart, and or just a number with a trend chart if you don't have any variance data. So they can be used very basically, like if you just have a number and you'd like to display this way, you can do it. I think it's more valuable to add some variance to it. Let's start with that. And the very first thing that it will tell us that you need a reference dimension to be set. And there is a new variance intersection here that just says, okay, your main query is net income, but what would you like to compare it? So in my case, I would just like to compare this to category. And it's asked me what category to select to compare to, and I want to compare it to budget. So now you see it shows a 59% increase compared to budget, and that's an absolute amount of 257,000. So if I want to take it one step further and include that little trend line, it will again tell me, okay, you would need at least a micro chart. You'll see also that the configuration is completely adaptive. So depending on what you select, you will see new configuration popping up. And the only thing what it needs to know is, okay, how would you like to configure that trend? And I just like to take my 12 months rolling list. It will nicely go 12 months back for my current point of view setting. And now you'll see that it shows both a trend and a variance selector. So I think tiles are simple, are powerful, and they just look really nice. So it's a great addition, you know, to enhance your dashboards or build new home pages. Like I said in the beginning, you can define that they need to navigate to another report. So they can also be great for homepage usage, where you just put a couple of tiles to help your end user to navigate to different reports. Okay, let me go to another report that we talked about, and that's the drilling on columns. And I guess that's something you all voted on very much. So we built it, and we're excited that it's over now. In basic, it works like drilling on rows. So a typical use case, you would have a report with your 4 quarters, and you would like to provide your user with additional drill if they would like to see more. By default, what it does, it will try to fit everything into the space available. But if it needs a little bit more data, you see my screen just goes wider. So it's adapting automatically to the width of the screen. Another thing with the column selectors, what we've explicitly not done is a drill all button, and that's because this could potentially cause very slow reports. If you drill on all your rows and all your columns, if users would do that by default, it would, you know, maybe start pulling for a long time, because those are all individual queries. So we still offer the drill all rows, but on the columns, they would just have to drill down. It supports multi-level drilling, so if you would have weeks below April, you could drill further. But other than that, it's just the same way as all the other functionality. Well, to go back to my homepage, what I mentioned before is that we have functionality that allows you to drill outside CXO-Cockpit. To show you an example of that, how that could work is we have built up a dashboard on our leads, and for example, this shows a couple of pie charts. I can go into my unqualified leads. I can, for example, drill on North America. That has my personal interest. And I can go to, for example, my best scoring campaign here. So that's what this dashboard does. And what this brings me is to a next sheet. And normally this has individual lead names, but for the demo, I just repeated the campaign name. And what I can do, if I see a certain lead, I see the name of the person who downloaded our white paper, for example. I can see how old it was, and I can see, so now I can see the score. Our CRM system automatically scores leads, and I can see how old the lead is. But that's it. I don't see every individual detail. So by clicking on this link, it goes directly into CRM, and it shows the exact record. And that's you know, and I won't go into too much detail on our CRM because those are actual leads in our system. But I can really go into every individual detail of this lead, and see all the attributes of you know, when was this lead created, what other things has this potential prospect done, or you know, I can see all the details. So that's a very powerful way. But you can imagine that this could also allow you to drill from CXO-Cockpit into a transactional system. For example, if you want to drill from your day sales outstanding into your transactions and see, you know, what customers still owe you money. Those things could be possible, and you can get into deeper level of detail than what CXO-Cockpit typically would contain. So it's a very powerful feature that you can use. Well, another thing, for example, what we support, and that bridges also the part where I mentioned before, you know, our collaboration features that we supported from version 6.2 are very powerful features, but our system announcement is a great new addition to this. Let's say that I would like to inform all my end users, as being the administrator on this platform. I would like to inform all my end users that the data is ready for the month of September. Well, I can go into the CXO Designer, and I can, for example, open up my system announcements. And here you actually see the same element that we used to have for news. So you will, you know, once you upgrade to 6.3, you would still see all your existing news items, but that we just renamed them into system announcements. Well, I already created a news item for data for September now available, but I can, for example, edit this news item now, and consolidation has finished and the data for September is now available. I could have created a new one. I can also open up an existing one, and it has two options here. I can publish on home report and news control if you still use the traditional homepage, or maybe a custom homepage with the news control. You can decide to publish it there, but you can also decide to send a notification on save. So if I save this, for example, I can unpublish it from the home report, but I do want to send this out as a notification to all my users. So even if the news item already existed, you can every time again decide to send out that same news item. So I decide to send it out. And in the meantime, I'm going to log on with another user in the system. Open up a second web browser, and I'm going to log in with one of the regional controllers, Jose Garcia. So he's also logging in with his Active Directory, and he signs in, going into the same application. And how this will look for a user, when he enters the system, he sees this little notification sign here, and with a 1 in there, showing there is one new notification. So data for September now available. You can write bigger stories in here, but it just shows the actual data. And once you viewed it, that notification with that one disappears. If Jose wouldn't have logged in within 5 minutes, he would have actually received an email from the system saying that there is a new notification available. We will not write the notification in the email. People will actually have to log into the system to read the whole text. And that's because this is a great way to interact with your users and actually, invite them to look in the system and start navigating reports. So I think this is a great feature, but it's really even better in combination with our functionality around conversations. For example, Jose just saw this data, that this data is available. He's looking at this P&L, and he is actually responsible for the USA part of the business. So he looks at the USA P&L and he thinks, well, if I compare this to my budget, it changes some things in the default selections. You might want to look at this from a relative perspective, and he sees the provision for the income taxes, and he detects that there's an error here. So he can write back to the system administrator, say, please check the USA consolidated income tax, or the provision for income tax, but people understand it. He can select any user in the system, but in this case, he would like to have a chat with me. He can also select multiple users, if he wants any other person in the company, but in this case, it's just a one-on-one message, and he could start this conversation with, in this case, with me. So I'm doing both roles, both Jose. Can you please check? I think it's wrong. So he sends this message to Wouter, and I switch from application. I will just go back into the regular user mode. And if I would log in, or I am currently in the system, but let's say I wouldn't have been in the system, I would have received an email saying that there's a new conversation, and I can actually click on it. I see it's Jose Garcia, and he says that there is something wrong with the USA consolidated number. So I will quickly go in, and you'll see that all the selections that Jose made, so he selected provision for income taxes, he selected budget instead of previous year, he looked at a relative percentage. So all those settings are transferred, but it's not static. It's almost a picture, but I can still click on other lines and continue my analysis. But I will say I agree. We'll fix it ASAP. So, and of course now Jose would see an updated message saying, hey, you got an answer. If it wouldn't be in the system, it will get an email from it. So you really keep your conversation on a specific topic within the system. What I could now do is quickly rerun my consolidation, fix the error, update the data in CXO-Cockpit, and then I could republish the same system announcement with corrected data. And the nice thing is, if you make the same system announcement, it wouldn't send another one to everyone. It would just, for those people that did not see the previous one, they would see the updated message immediately. So it's a very friendly way of doing this. This is kind of the demo that I wanted to show you today. We went over the most important 6.3 features, and I would like to leave the last couple of minutes for some questions. So if you haven't asked any of your questions, feel free to use the software to ask questions. Just type them in, and let me go over this. Give me a second. I have a hard time reading them. A little bigger the question window. So I see the first question: is it possible to send a system notification to a subset of users? And I think that's a very good question. Unfortunately, the very first version is just to all users, so we can't really distinguish what users it will be sent to. But this is a great improvement maybe for a next version. We know groups of users in CXO-Cockpit are regular user groups, but those are more used for security. They aren't by default like something that that you could use for defining a community. But we could look in a way to actually start creating distribution lists of users to send different messages to different users. I think this is a great feature request. Please post it on the AHA ID portal, and everyone can start answering, can start voting on such a feature improvement. So another question, someone writes that he's very happy with the dynamic titles. And it's not even a question, just writing that this person is very happy, so thank you for that. Yeah, just use your questions to write compliments, that's no problem. I'm happy to build that in. Another question is, would it be possible to use prediction functions to make scenarios max and min on your budget? And I think that's a very interesting question. So the way I interpret this is, could you use this prediction functionality to guide your budgeting process? And I think that's a very good use case for this. If I go back to the to that specific report and look at the way how the how this is set up, if we go to a very specific line, first of all, I think this prediction is most valuable if you keep it close to the source. If you go down in your P&L, there's a lot of accounting rules, and I think predictions will become less valuable. But if you put it on some kind of source, like a lowest level account, like net software licenses, and it shows this very clear bump in your prediction, you see actually that the budget of 2017 did not include that increase, and neither it has in 2018. So the 2017 budget has been made already a year ago, but this company will currently be in the budgeting process for 2018, and you see a clear issue with your budget. So to answer the question, like, can we do this automatically? Can we help you create a budget? Well, I think CXO-Cockpit is not by default a budgeting tool, but you could definitely use this to guide your budgeting process and show, in this case, that your budget didn't count in any historical trend that can be clearly seen in the data. So I could definitely go back into my budgeting tool and correct this, load it back into CXO-Cockpit to see if it's shown in a better way now. So I definitely see a great value between the budgeting process and predictive analytics. Okay, I still have some issues with the actual questions, with reading them, but let me see if I can open up a new question. I see another question is, how did you include data numbers in the report title? And I'm not sure if I understand this question, because we haven't shown any example where we had like real numbers in the report title. It just shows actual members, and they were included in the way I showed you. So you can actually have something like USA by just sharing or by just configuring it with the dynamic label for entity as a dimension. So we don't store numbers in report titles. Another question, that's the one we already had. And that one we also already answered. Okay, that's another compliment. Okay, first far, and I have to apologize. I see the questions on the size of a stamp. Basically, it's really hard to read them. But as far as I can see, we've answered all the questions. I'd like to thank you very much. If we haven't answered your question, we actually see them in the system, and we'll get back to you to answer your more specific questions. Also, feel free to reach out to me. Probably most of you have my email address, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. We are able to help you with your upgrade. Please reach out to support@CXO-Cockpit.com, and we can provide you with an upgrade installer and the actual steps. Or if you would like to have real support with your upgrade, we can plan that in as well. As always, our upgrades are free of charge. It's part of your subscription. So yeah, you can start using the functionality that is shown today as soon as you upgrade to version 6.3. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for his attention, and I'm looking forward to work with you with this latest release. Thank you very much.